You ever wonder how a website seems to have a memory? You know, how it remembers who you are or what you left in your shopping cart? Well, it's not magic, and today we're going to gently pull back the curtain and see exactly how that memory works.
Really, it all comes down to this one simple question. Because when you visit a site these days, you're not just reading a page. More often than not, you're actually starting a conversation.
All right, so let's dive into that. This whole idea of a web with a memory really comes from the difference between two kinds of websites. In the early days, the web was mostly static. Think of a website like a book you could only read. The pages were there, the words were fixed, and that was pretty much it. But people quickly realized we needed something more. We needed websites that were less like a book you just read and more like a book you could actually have a conversation with. A site that responds to you, that changes, that remembers. And that's the dynamic web. So how do you have that conversation? Well, that's where two key partners come into play, PHP and MySQL. As Robin Nixon says here, they're the most convenient approach. And this combination it was a huge deal. It became the engine for a giant part of the web we still use today, everything from millions of blogs to the early days of sites like Facebook. So let's meet them. First up, we've got PHP. The absolute best way to think about PHP is to picture it as the friendly messenger in this whole operation. It's the one doing all the talking.
Now, the official term is a scripting language, which sounds a bit techy, right? But what does it really mean? Well, simply put, it's just a set of instructions that runs on the website's main computer, the server. Its whole job is to take your requests and build the dynamic parts of a web page before it's ever sent to your browser. It's the ultimate behind-the-scenes communicator.
And check this out. Here's a tiny little example of PHP in action. This little bit of code doesn't just say today is. Nah, it's smarter than that. It actually asks the server, hey, what day is it today? And then it plugs the answer right into the page. So if you visit on a Monday, it says Monday. On Tuesday, it says Tuesday. See? That's a tiny dynamic conversation happening right there. But a messenger needs someone to talk to, right? A place to get information from. And that brings us to our second partner, MySQL, which we can think of as the website's library. So MySQL is a database system. Just imagine trying to store all of a website's information, user profiles, blog posts, product info, in a bunch of simple text files. It would be a total mess. MySQL is the complete opposite of that. It's a perfectly organized library where all the data is stored in these neat, structured tables. That makes it incredibly fast and easy to find the exact piece of information you're looking for. And to find stuff in this library, you can't just wander around. You have to ask a very specific question using a special language called SQL. This example here is basically the computer version of walking up to the librarian and saying, "Pardon me, could you find the first and last name of the person whose email is jsmith@mysite.com?" It's precise, so it gets a precise answer.
So this is the crucial part. The real magic happens when our messenger, PHP, starts having a conversation with our library, MySQL.
And that conversation follows a few pretty logical steps. First, PHP connects to the library. Then it goes to the right section, the specific database it needs. It carefully writes down its request, that SQL query we talked about. It asks the question, and finally, it gets the answer back and knows exactly how to display it for you. So let's see what this conversation actually looks like. We're going to look at a little bit of code, but don't worry about the details at all. We're just looking for that simple pattern we just talked about. And here it is, that pattern in action. You can see the line that starts with MySQL connect. That's step one, PHP introducing itself and connecting to the library. Then look at the line starting with $query. That's PHP writing down the question it wants to ask. And that's really the core of it all. You establish a connection, then you ask a question. Everything else is just details. It's also kind of cool to remember where all this is happening. As you can see here, when you click a link, your request travels from your browser, zips across the internet, all the way to the web server. And it's right there, on that server, that this entire PHP and MySQL conversation we've been talking about takes place, all in the blink of an eye, just to build the exact page that gets sent back to you. So when you strip it all away, that's the fundamental secret. PHP is the messenger that asks the questions. MySQL is the library that holds all the answers. And their simple, lightning-fast conversation is what creates the dynamic, responsive, and memorable web we all use every single day. So as we finish up, here's a quiet thought to leave you with. If you had access to a vast, perfectly organized library of information, what's the first thing you'd want to ask?